We weren't expecting to find anything else. But the house had other plans. On Sunday, while replacing a warped board under the hallway cabinet, I pried up a floor panel, one that had always creaked, even when we were kids. And beneath it, tucked in a tin box wrapped in plastic, was a letter. Handwritten. Dated 15 years ago. From Grandpa. It was addressed to both of us. If you're reading this, it means this old house is in your hands now. I hope it's been full of laughter and not too many leaky pipes. We both laughed at that. This house isn't perfect. It creaks. It groans. The roof leaks when it rains sideways. But it's where our family grew up, and we hope it reminds you where you come from and that you never have to carry that memory alone. It doesn't matter who owns the deed. What matters is who shows up. Be kind to each other. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. By the time we reached the last line, Emily had tears rolling down her cheeks. The next few weeks were hard physically and emotionally. We worked on the house together, pulling up moldy drywall, fixing the roof patch by patch, replacing dead wiring, and slowly turning a decaying memory into something livable again. She took out a small renovation loan. I called in a few favors from an electrician friend. We sold the old furniture and found new pieces at garage sales like Grandma would have wanted. We didn't turn it into a palace, but we turned it into ours. And in doing so, we healed something between us that had been broken for years since we were kids, arguing over who got the front seat or the last cookie. Yeah? We co-own it. She lives there full-time, with Kyle eventually moving in. I visit every month. I even have a spare key in my own room now, the one that used to be the sewing room. And we're planning to turn the attic into a writing space filled with our grandparents' books and notes. When people ask why I gave up the house, I smile and say, I didn't. I just waited until someone was ready to share it. Because Grandpa was right. It's not about who owns it. It's about who shows up when it counts. But another part, the older brother part, wanted to fix it anyway. Even if she never deserved it. I thought the worst was over after the mold and the sketchy tenant. I was wrong. Emily was waiting for me at the kitchen table the next morning with a cup of coffee and a folder, one of those oversized manila ones stuffed with unopened mail. She didn't say a word as she slid it toward me. Inside were bills. Dozens of them. Overdue notices, warnings, repairs that were never completed. One was from the city, a formal citation for structural hazards and property neglect. You're kidding, I said, flipping through them. I wanted to fix it all, she said quietly. I just didn't know where to start. Every time something broke, I'd tell myself I could handle it next paycheck. Why didn't you sell? She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. Because I didn't want to admit I couldn't handle what they left us. That was the heart of it. Not pride, not really. Guilt. Legacy. Trying to live up to something she didn't understand. The truth came out in waves. She hadn't told anyone in the family how bad it had gotten. She didn't want our parents to know. She hadn't even told her fiancé. Wait. Fiancé? You're still with Kyle? I asked, shocked. She nodded. Barely. He wants me to sell the house and move in with him. He said I should have never taken it in the first place. And what do you want? She didn't answer, just stared out the window, past the sagging porch railing and the patchy grass. I wanted to prove I could take care of something, she said finally. That I wasn't just the bossy one or the planner. That I could actually make a home. It hit me then, how different this house had been to both of us. To her, it was a symbol of stability. To me, it was a memory I'd already mourned. I'm not going to say I told you so, I said. She looked over. Good, because you'd be right. That afternoon, I crawled through the rest of the attic and found more than old insulation. There were journals, photo albums, Grandpa's boxes labeled Keep for him. Emily was stunned when I brought them down. I didn't even know these were up there. You never looked, I said gently. We spent hours flipping through them. For the first time in years, we weren't fighting. We weren't comparing. We were just siblings remembering. Until she said, do you think they made a mistake? Leaving it to both of us? I paused. No. I think they hoped we'd bring each other back here. When it mattered. And maybe that's exactly what was happening. The house was falling apart. But maybe, just maybe, we weren't. The smell hit me before I even stepped inside. Not the warm cinnamon of Grandma's kitchen. Not the wood polish Grandpa used on the banister. This was mildew, rot, decay. Emily stood in the front hallway, arms crossed tightly like she was trying to hold herself together. She was in a hoodie and pajama pants, no makeup, no performance. You weren't kidding, I muttered. She just pointed. First, the crawl space. I had to pry the old wooden hatch open under the stairs. The moment I did, a damp, heavy stink rushed out. "What exactly did you find down here?" I asked, grabbing a flashlight. "I don't know." I heard scratching. Then I saw something move. I shined the light down and froze. There were scraps of shredded insulation, damp floorboards, and in the corner, a sagging bundle of what looked like old food containers and a chewed-up backpack. It didn't look like a pest problem. It looked like someone had been down there recently. Back upstairs, I tried to keep calm. "Emily, do you have a tenant? Someone renting the basement, or?" She shook her head. "No, of course not." Then, after a pause, "Well, not exactly." I waited. She took a breath. 3 months ago, I rented out the guest room, just for a bit of extra cash. To who? A friend of a friend. His name's Trevor. I didn't do a background check. He seemed nice. I closed my eyes. "You gave a stranger a key to our grandparents' house?" "I needed help with the mortgage," she snapped. "You wouldn't know what it's like, walking into a house full of memories and realizing it needs a new roof, new wiring, and you don't have anyone to split the cost with." That stung. But I let her keep going. Apparently, Trevor had stopped paying rent a month ago, then stopped coming upstairs entirely. "I think he was sleeping down there," Emily whispered. "But now he's just gone." I looked around. Water stains in the ceiling, mold creeping up the corners of the kitchen. It wasn't just one bad tenant. It was years of deferred maintenance, wishful thinking, and pride. "You could have asked me for help," I said softly. She looked away. "I didn't want to give you the satisfaction." That said everything. We spent the next 3 hours in gloves and masks, pulling out trash and laying down fans. I found a half-rotted beam under the kitchen floor that flexed when I stepped on it. We were one bad winter away from collapse. "This house is in serious trouble," I told her. Emily didn't argue. She just sat on the porch steps, staring at the overgrown lawn like she couldn't believe it had all gotten away from her. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I thought if I had the house, I'd finally be the one holding things together. I didn't think I'd be the one watching it fall apart." The house was in rough shape. But Emily? She was in worse shape. And part of me hated how satisfying it felt to hear her admit she needed me. Our grandparents' house wasn't a mansion. It didn't have a pool or a marble kitchen. But it had history, ours. It was where my sister Emily and I spent nearly every weekend as kids. Where Grandma taught us how to bake cookies that somehow always came out lopsided. Where Grandpa built us a tree swing and let us eat popsicles on the porch swing even in winter. So when they passed, first Grandpa, then Grandma a year later, they left us that house. Together. Equal ownership. No conditions. At the time, I assumed we'd work it out like adults. I was wrong. Emily came to the first estate meeting armed with a full presentation. Charts. Market values. A whole list of why it makes more sense for me to take the house. She opened with, "Look, we both know you're not as rooted as I am." I blinked. "Rooted? You rent. You move every couple of years. You're not exactly a homeowner type. Grandma and Grandpa wanted us to share it." She smiled like she pitied me. "I just think I'd appreciate it more." I wanted to argue. I really did. But my sister, 3 years older, louder, and far more stubborn, bulldozed right over every protest. She said I could keep my memories and that she'd honor the family legacy. Then she added the final blow. "It just doesn't seem like something you'd know how to take care of." So I let it go. She wanted it that badly? Fine. Let her have it. I signed a document transferring my interest to her with the understanding that I wouldn't owe anything for taxes or upkeep. I didn't even ask for a payout. I figured if she loved it like she claimed, she'd keep it up. Fast forward 9 months. I hadn't visited the house once since I gave it up. I thought Emily would turn it into the charming home she always dreamed of: cozy porch lights, hand-painted planters, all that Pinterest stuff she used to pin during meetings. But then I got a call. "Emily, at 7:42 a.m. on a Saturday. Are you home right now?" She asked, panic in her voice. I sat up in bed. "Yeah. Why?" I think there's mold. Like, a lot. And I found something in the crawl space. I don't know what it is, but it's bad." Pause. "Can you come help me?" I hadn't even seen the house in nearly a year. Now suddenly she needed me? I almost said no, but something in her voice stopped me. Not panic. Not guilt. It was something closer to fear. When I pulled into the driveway, my stomach dropped. The paint was peeling. The yard was overgrown. The porch swing was gone. Whatever had happened in that house? Emily clearly hadn't told me the whole story. And what I found inside? It wasn't just rot in the walls. It was the beginning of something much deeper.